So it's been teased by Marvel Studios for a while, and we finally have it. The official MCU timeline and the problems it raises. Let's talk about it. Okay guys, so before we get right into this video, let me just say that there is no inclusion of the Marvel TV shows in this timeline. So the likes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Daredevil, Cloak and Dagger, Runaways, and others are not featured. This isn't due to the fact that I'm lazying out, this is due to the fact that they're not mentioned, as they only include the cinematic conclusions, which makes up the movies. So with that out of the way, let's get into this. So the first film is of course going to be Captain America the First Avenger, which we know takes place in 1943 to 1945. This is largely unchanged, and it's one of the most concrete things we know in the MCU so far. Of course, this is set during World War II, the build up to it, and Captain America's eventual sacrifice, so nothing much changed here. Now after this point is where things get rather different, and our conception of what we thought was the MCU timeline has officially altered, because Iron Man 1 coming out in 2008, many of us assumed that this is when it takes place. Well, this has now been changed as Iron Man 1 takes place in 2010. So most of you are probably already starting to see some of the problems that are going to arise here, but we'll get into those in just a minute. So going off of that, we know that at the end of Iron Man, Tony Stark reveals his identity, and Iron Man 2 picks up just a short time after. Previously, we thought about 6 months. Now it's confirmed it takes place somewhere in 2011. Alongside of that is The Incredible Hulk, and of course Thor, which we all know takes place during 1 week. As it's known, it's Fury's Insane Week, and all those little one-shots take place that were included that were involving Agent Coulson. So going off of that, we go into 2012, which officially sees everybody unite in the Avengers, and shortly after that, we have Iron Man 3. And the rest of 2012 is relatively quiet until we get to 2013, where only one major thing happens, which happens to be Thor: The Dark World. After that, we go into 2014, where we actually have Captain America the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Thus, officially, it's been confirmed to us that yes, these movies take place one right after the other. Now we jump on over into 2015, where we have Avengers Age of Ultron and the first Ant-Man film, which makes sense considering Ant-Man takes place literally right alongside Age of Ultron, so nothing weird here yet. Going into 2016 is where things are going to start to get rather shaky, and things start to make a little bit less sense. Because first up, we have Captain America Civil War and Spider-Man Homecoming. 2016 to 2017, because we know it's right there towards, as it's getting colder where Doctor Strange starts out, we know that that is Doctor Strange, so this sort of keeps up in line and starts to make a little bit more sense. And going into 2017, this is where everything we thought we knew officially doesn't make any sense. 2017, we have Black Panther, Thor Ragnarok, and Avengers Infinity War. So there it is guys, the official timeline of the MCU. Now that that part is done, let me talk about the problems. So for those of you keeping count, if the Avengers happens in 2012 and Avengers Infinity War happens in 2017, that means that only 5 years have went by. Spider-Man Homecoming, which takes place a year before Avengers Infinity War, says that it's been 8 years since the Avengers incident. But that's not possible due to the fact that there can only be 4 years that went by. On the other side of this, we have Black Panther, which is now stated to take place in 2017, even though the film literally picks up right after Civil War, which takes place in the early part of 2016. So unless Doctor Strange messing with time manipulation has somehow messed everything up, once again, this doesn't match up. And of course, then there's all of those problems with the early films. We thought Iron Man 1 took place in 2008. Apparently not. So everything has now been skewed a little bit further back, which also makes things not line up, because originally when we heard the 8 years later, we assumed, okay, maybe Iron Man is 2007, 2008, like early parts at the earliest. but now that can't happen. So now things are looking a little bit all over the place, which then would be further even more confusing if we included some of the TV shows, which then that's a little bit even more all over the place. But overall, at least we have a timeline, even if it doesn't make as much sense as we once thought it did.